So at this point in the process, you should have something that looks like this. It's basically a grid. The outside dimension is 12 inches, and each of these surfaces is like whatever the dimension of your plywood is. And in this case, it's 0.135 inches. So the next step is figuring out, like, how do you laser cut notches that are gonna, if this was one piece, we have to carve out a notch halfway down on this side and on the other side, so that when the jigsaw pieces fit together, they're going to be flush. So the way that we're going to do that is that one dimension of this grid, either the X or the Y, you're going to select all of them and drop it down 1/2 inch. Okay, so basically if I drop this down 1/2 inch, oops. If I drop this front piece down 1/2 inch, like that, what happens is, you can see what we're going to do here. We're going to use Boolean Split, go in there and like split away that piece, and then on this piece we're going to split away the other piece. So that's what we're going to figure out. Now, one of the things that's going to help you manage this, because at this point we have to be really precise. We were really precise with measuring the thickness of the material. Now we have to be very precise going halfway through the material here. The depth here is 1 inch, and if we go exactly 1/2 inch on both pieces, then the whole thing will end up being flush when we put the pieces together as a big jigsaw. So the best way to do that is go into the preferences. So under File, if we go to the properties of the whole document, okay, so properties, and then we come to modeling aids, and if you set your nudge may be set differently. So what I've done is, because we're using inches and we're trying to move things around very precisely, I've got 1/4 inch, 0.25 of an inch on my nudge key. Okay, so you want to set this to make your life simpler, and every time you hit the nudge key, it's going to move 1/4 inch, so that 2 hits of the nudge key would be moving everything down 1/2 inch. And it's a bit confusing because we're using a Mac keyboard. So Alt plus arrow key in the Mac keyboard, it's the Option plus the down arrow. Okay, so keep that in mind. I know it's a bit confusing, but Alt means Option on your keyboard. Okay, so if you have that set up, it's going to be really easy to just say, okay, I'm going to select one of these pieces. Okay, now I'm holding down the Option key and I'm hitting the arrow, and I can go up 1/4 inch, another 1/4 inch. So even though I'm not aligned with everything on the grid, because I should have, but I didn't align it to the grid, I'm still moving this down 1/2 inch, and it's all going to work out very well. Okay, so I have all of the X and the Y pieces grouped together. So if I select them all this way, or if I select them all in that direction, in the Y direction, okay? And you might have to select them all and group them, but it'll save you a bit of time. It'll keep things organized. So all I have to do is select one of these planes, and in this case I'm on the Y, and then just go down here, and if I hit the Option key and the down arrow, they all move down 1/2 inch. So it should look like this. Okay, so now we're going to use Boolean Split. So if you go over to the left-hand menu bar, this one is Boolean Split. It's a bit tricky. You're going to have to play around with this a bit before you get it 100%. So let me start over again. Select the surfaces to split. Okay, so I'm going to start with this surface. Actually, it's not letting me. Okay, So apparently it wouldn't let me select the whole row. So that's okay. We can still work around this. So probably from the top view, it's going to be easier to select everything from the top view. So I'm going to go at it this way. So Boolean Split, select that tool, select the surfaces to split, and it says delete input, and I'm going to say no. I'm not going to delete the input. Okay, so I'm holding down Shift, and apparently with the Boolean command you have to get everything selected individually like this, which is kind of boring, but it's okay. It's not a big deal. Okay, so those are the pieces I'm going to split, and then I hit enter when done. Select the cutting surface. Now what you need to do is just select the opposite dimension, the Y pieces. And I know it seems kind of complicated, but in the end you'll see what's actually happening here. Okay, now this little donut thing is going to spin around because it's doing a lot of work. There's an awful lot of math going on in the background when you use these operations. Okay, so now that's interesting because it goes back to the group. I can select the group, and if we zoom in on it, you can see that all these little notches have been cut out, and that's what we want. But on this dimension, they have not been cut out. So we have to go back and do that again, except that the cutting tool, we reverse the order of the cutting tool. So we just go back and say, all right, let's do another Boolean split. The surface to split is going to be these surfaces. So the surfaces that we're going to cut are these ones. Okay, and then we're going to hit enter. And that time it seemed to select the group. I don't know why. Cutting surface. So we're going to cut it with, this is where it gets a bit complicated. You'll see that it creates two pieces. One doesn't have any of the split notches, and you're going to select that one. And we have to go through each one of these, and you kind of have to see it. It's a bit complicated, but the one that does not have the notches. Okay. So you see I screwed up there. I didn't want to select that. So you're going to go through the entire length of this and select the other ones, and then you hit enter, delete input no, and then you're going to have a notch on both the X and the Y axis slices.